Hello! Today we are going to have a look at the Deeproot Depths from a level design and world design perspective. But first, where are the Deeproot Depths? I don't like this word, depths. Hard to pronounce. The Deeproot Depths are underneath Leyndell, and, well, they're part of the underground system. As we can see here, we can see the Ainsa River, the Siofra River, and the Deeproot Depths area. And there are actually two ways getting in here. The quote-unquote official way, or the way that most of us probably take the first time playing this game, is through the Starfall crater. After we've killed Radahn, we can get there, which leads us to the Nokron part, to the upper part of the Siofra River, basically. And there we have to go to the Great Waterfall Basin, where we fight the two, I think, Valiant Gargoyles or whatever they're called. And then we can take, well, of course, the coffin, which takes us to this area, but only to this area down below here. And when we take the quote-unquote secret path through the underground of Leyndell and then through the Frenzied Flame prescription area, we can go through an illusory wall, and this will, well, we will end up here. This is the path we have to jump down, and then we are up here. And let's actually keep going from up here. There's not much to talk about this part, so before I go any further, I have to talk about the color palette on this place, because it looks like it would stink, to be honest. They have this brown fog, and then the earthy, kind of rotten colors they've used on other parts of the game, which most of the time indicate like rot and shit like that. This is a bit different here because it's not directly connected to Scarlet Rot, but to death, which is, well, also some kind of rot, basically. Maybe something unpleasant, so it looks like it would stink. We can actually see down there the glowing area. There is a set of grays, and we can see the waterfall falling down. Yes, we actually take the coffin to go up the waterfall. However that works, magic I guess, to end up down there. And up here are just a few flying and non-flying ants that are not very difficult at this specific point in the game. Basically their only really damaging attack is their projectile, which is not the strongest. This is basically not the strongest version of the ant. I think the strongest version is in Mikalasalik tree. So let me navigate this awful place here. And this kind of reminds me of the Great Hollow from Dark Souls 1. But actually, this game has better platforming. You can actually jump. The branches and small walkways are actually not made out of very slippery soap. If you remember the not the Deeproot Depths, the Great Hollow from Dark Souls 1, there were some branches with questionable collision. And let me see how we can actually get down here. I think it's just this path. Yeah. And then we can jump off here. And thanks Miyazaki that we can actually ride on Torrent down here. Imagine you had to do this whole section by foot. That would be a big waste of time. Excuse me, a big waste of time. And here we are at the quote-unquote official, or the, well, yeah, let's call it the official way of getting here. This is the coffin that we took up here, and this is the first grace we would encounter. And you see this very strangely milky water. So, thanks to Tarnished Archaeologist, I think it was, I think the name was this one, to elaborate why this water is actually a bit milky. Apparently it's due to corpse wax or something like that, like basically stuff from corpses that actually can wash clothing and stuff. You can actually use this death water basically as soap, I think. Maybe I'm correct, not correct there, but well, just remember this is like water with corpse shit in there. So, yummy, I guess. Don't drink that. Okay. Up there we had a few ants. Here we have a Earthtree avatar, which is interesting because, well, feels like this is not the right place. So what are the Earthtree avatars guarding? Most of the time they are guarding like minor structures like these minor Earthtrees and stuff like Leyndell, and because we are very close to an Earthtree, to the actual Earthtree right here, as you can see on the map, the Earthtree should be somewhere over here when the Fractured America Grace is over here. This is basically the middle of the Earthtree, right? The Earthtree should be here. We can sadly not actually see the sky beam there. Is it too far? No, we can actually see it. So the Earthtree, if it would be like, if it's like correctly built, should be somewhere over there. We can't see it here, at least not with the glow. Maybe it's not glowing underground, or maybe, well, there's the theory that the Earthtrees are basically fungi. Well, it's a theory that, I don't care. But we can't actually see the Earthtree from down here, or at least it's not noticeable, because I don't think this is part of the Earthtree, right? This big, chunky root thingy, or yeah, whatever. Because it kind of looks like, either it looks like one of these big roots here, or whatever these are, trunks maybe, that flow into the bigger one over there. Because it doesn't, it either looks like it is cut off, or it looks like it's going into something that's behind there. Maybe we can have a look at this later on. Excuse me, other than that, not much to talk about here, so let's keep on going. How do I get into that cave up there? Let's see, is this the cave way? Down up there, so this should be the cave way, right? Yes, nice, okay. So, because there's not much to talk about, well, we can have a look at the bottom, and it doesn't look well, right? It doesn't look great. First of all, let me jump off torrent so we can actually have a better look down there. Not that high resolution down there, right? Because it's very far down, there are not much details, kind of looks blurry, and it just looks like here the milky water with like trees in there. And this might be part of the Earthtree. Let's have a look. No, maybe not. From afar it looks golden to me, right? From afar it looks kind of golden, but when you zoom in it doesn't look golden at all. It looks like, well, like the brownish texture that we are currently standing on. So maybe this is part of the Earth tree. Would that fit actually? Let's have a look. Where am I looking at? Okay, I'm looking directly at this part. So is this supposed to be the Earth tree? Or actually like this one? It's not 100% correct, but maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not here for the lore. Not from the lore that we can read on, I'm here for the lore that we can see. And if this is actually the Earth tree, then it's a bit off-center. But back to the theory with Earth tree equals fungi, or fungus, a mushroom basically, or a, what's it called? Like a leech of some sort, leeching from another tree that was there before, then it would actually make somewhat of a sense, like this is the tree that came before, and then the Earth tree just plugged itself into the tree and sucking off their nutrients. So here we are in an ant cave, I guess, with a lot of ants, like the bloaty ants, worker ants is what the wiki is calling the ones without the wings, then the winged ants, whatever. And these actually drop Numen runes, the big ones with the bloaty things, so did they eat Numens? Because Numens were like the people that were banished underground. Usually all the Nox people are Numen race, I think. And then due to the... we will talk about that later. It's definitely worth it watching the Tarnished Archaeologist's video, and thank you for that comment, otherwise I wouldn't have looked at that video. Because they were talking about... Basically because I said here, it makes no sense that there's... In Leyndell, that there is a gate leading into the moat or something. It looks like a moat, right? So... And the Tarnished Archaeologist talked about the... What's it called here? The Nameless Eternal City, which would have been part of Leyndell over here, which actually makes a lot of sense. Come to think of it, it's right underneath, so... Maybe this was a Numen district or something like that, right? But we have a look at this later on. And there, by the way, this item over there is, by the way, the... Have I said by the way already? The Elden Star. This legendary incantation is the most ancient of those that derive from the Earth tree. Creates a stream of golden shooting stars that assail the area. I don't know what assail means. It is said that long ago the Greater Will sent a golden star bearing a beast into the lands between, which would later become the Elden Ring. So... So it crashed somewhere in this area, I guess. Well, it crashed there where the... close to the Earth tree, probably. But let's keep going, because I want to talk about the Nameless City that we will shortly find. I mean, this area right here isn't that important, I guess. It's just the pre-area to the Eternal City part. And it's not very that interesting, right? Here it starts getting interesting, because here we start seeing some structures. And let's have a look. There are more trees, yeah, this looks... Now, this looks alright over here, right? This looks alright, like... a bit stinky, and but it's alright, but... This area over here, like these roots, where are they even coming from? These roots over here, like this whole area. Where is it actually? It's partially nothing, partially like Altus Plateau. And it kind of feels dirty, right? But because it's right underneath this, not right underneath, but it's partially underneath this place. And in this place there are a lot of worm faces, which, well, maybe it's part of the lore, but probably not, because there's a lot of stuff that, well, it's just a big underground cavern. Is there actually something down there? There should be part of the Eternal City down there, right? Part of the bridge even, because as we can see, if the Eternal City was once over here, first of all, why is it called the Eternal City? I mean, Leyndell isn't called the Eternal City, just this part over here, just this half circle. Huh. But apparently this is part of the Eternal City, and when we have a look at this part, where the bridge is actually the, well, the big ass drop. So can we see something? No, of course not. Of course not. Well, unlucky I guess. Here, where? There is she. What is she talking about? Let's have a look at her dialogue.
Oh, Lord, such cruelty. Oh, my poor, sweet lordling should have died as the first of, as a martyr to destined death. But why must it yet bring such disgrace? Scion of the Golden Bough, sentenced to live. How could...
Okay, she's of course talking about the fuck is going on here. She's talking about the Prince of Death, at which we will have a look at later. But first, let's get into the Eternal City. And oh boy, I have to talk about this part area over here. And yes, while it makes thematic sense, thanks to this corpse water, I will call this corpse water from now on, there are like 10 million of these fucking basilisks over here, and the golden centipede. And oh boy, these basilisks are shit. Like, is there even one person liking them? I mean, the design is cool, right? But, like, holy shit, are they annoying, and there are like 10,000 down here. What were they thinking? It's not behind here, but there are like 10 million hidden in these bushes, then there are like in the ruins, they're dwelling in the ruins, like here even like already in this building there are like 10 million alone. Ugh, I don't like that. But let's have a talk about the Eternal City and their inhabitants. First of all, there are a lot of these half-finished Valiant Gargoyles, which are, well, we encounter them in Leyndell, I think the first time, and, well, it makes sense that they're now here. So, because there are so many down here, it makes me think that they were actually produced here. What are they made of? Are they made of like corpses, corpse wax, or fused by corpse wax and like stone or something like this? And oh boy, if you have a look at them, they kind of look like parts of Albinaurics, right? With their elongated necks. Maybe this is a coincidence, but it looks to me like... Holy shit, let's have a look at that first. The design is like horrific, excuse me. Like... This is like a fusion of... apparently a fusion of different corpses. It doesn't really look like that, but... I think... Let's have a look at the weapons they use, like a Gargoyle's Twin Blade. Okay, Okay, patchwork of champions. Just like the wielder, which are basically the valiant gargoyles, the missing parts have been mended with corpse wax, so... But it's bronze, so maybe these are partially made out of bronze. There is a bit of bronze, I guess. The shackle on their leg. But they're disgusting looking. Let's have a look at them closer. Again, the hollow, like belly thing, like the trolls. And yeah, the face is made out of multiple faces. Ugh. Like, whose idea was that? Well, let's not have a look at them. Apparently the architecture is similar to the one in Celia, or it's the same one. Like Celia, like this one over here. Town of Sorcery, which is basically a... Was it a Nox? Well, in Celia you have Night Sorcery, and Night Sorcery is like... Where is it? Does it say it over here somewhere? Below Celia, the eternal city of Nokron sleep. Below Celia? Is that correct? Well, a bit to the side, but okay, well. A bit to the side. But actually, let's have a look at this place, because it looks kind of interesting. This is definitely not the architecture we find in Lane Dell, so this is more like the architecture like Noxian. Well, Noxian is from League of Legends, but the Noxish architecture, I guess, or the Celian, whatever. And beside the parts of the Valiant Gargoyles, we have, and the... What are they called? The basilisks. We have these beheaded soldiers. And of course some knights like these. Be careful with the ones that have these burning spears. They will deal death blight. Like so many down here. Like the basilisks deal death blight. These dudes deal death blight. And holy shit, it looks disgusting every single space looks disgusting. And even the music is unsettling. Like, I haven't talked much about the music in this game, but different from the previous titles, where most of the game is silent, music-wise, in this game we actually have a lot of ambient music, and we had music themes like the one in Majula from Dark Souls 2, but this was something like an exception, and in this game we have like everywhere music. Like here we have these borderline horror music themes and shit like that. And I'm not really a fan of the overworld music or the ambient music, so to speak. Just because it's so repetitive. This game is so big, and especially the music that you have like when you go through big areas like these. It's just, the first time you hear it, it's nice, but after like 10 hours, it's getting on my nerves, and this is the reason, because this is the reason why I turn the music off for the majority of the time. But I guess for this video, it's fine. Let's actually get an advantage point and look at this place. We have quite a lot of buildings here, a few copy-pastes, but that's to be expected. None of them are standing. It's, well, when they actually drop down from here, or however they landed down here, I don't know why this happened. Maybe because of the war, like war damage made everything like crumble and part of Lane fell down or something like this, I don't know. But it's actually a pleasant surprise that, like, a lot of the city is actually not destroyed. Quote-unquote not destroyed. There are actually a few buildings still standing, right? Like this, for example. It's a wonder that nothing broke off. It almost looks too perfect to me, but well, we need something to climb on, right? And I don't really know what I want to talk about here now. Like, the level design here is like... It's interesting, because this feels... this part over here, usually all of them are firing their... Is it perfume? It looks like... I don't have an... Where's the perfume? There. Do I have some... Where are the perfume thingies? Actually, let's go into the crafting menu, because not the poison, not the this one, the spark aromatics. Let's craft some and show it. Nope, wrong slot. Where is it? I'm rarely using... I skipped it probably. Where is the perfume stuff? There. Okay, finally. Let me get out of torrent. And yeah, it's basically this one. So they're loaded. These Valiant Gargoyles are loaded up with spark aromatics, and they obviously are not firing at me because I turned my team type into non-existent, basically. So they are not even acknowledging me. I can't attack them. But they're basically just loaded up with the spark aromatic, which they will fire at you. Though fire was prohibited to those who served the Earth Tree, this rule was forgotten as the war drew ever on. Okay, well, not much lore there, other than it was forbidden once. Due to the wars, well, it was no longer forbidden. Do I have to talk about this? Actually, yeah, let's jump there because I... Oh, nice. Okay. Here we are on top of the waterfall, and by the way, where's all this water coming from even? Because it's always flowing down, but it's flowing down from this place, down here, it's flowing... Is it flowing down at this part? No, actually not at this part, lucky. But where's this water coming from, like, for real? This seems to be the origin over here, flowing down here, and then from, well, all of the surrounding area it flows down here. And then we have a river part over here, which is basically the origin. The origin is like somewhere over here, and it flows down... No, yeah, it flows down the biggest waterfall down here. Which, by the way, it's kinda twisted, right? Like, this is the waterfall. This part. And it flows in this direction, like north. But when we actually arrive, we come from here. Like, how big is this underwater river? Like, for real, what the fuck? Kinda unbelievable that the whole lands between aren't just crumbling underneath, because everything is hollow apparently underneath. Let's have a look at this hole here, because in there we have an interesting enemy, and with interesting enemy I mean like one of the most annoying enemies, at least for me, which is a rune bear. And if I remember correctly, this rune bear is actually dropping something interesting, because the rune bear is dropping the Prince of Death's cyst. A fetid, overgrown cyst taken from facial flesh. Greatly raises vitality, in brackets vitality governs resistance to the effects of death It is said that this cyst came from the corrupted visage of one unable to die a true death. Indeed, it comes from the Prince of Death, scion of the golden bod, and first of the dead among the demigods. And this is interesting, because the Prince of Death has, or because of him, there is a lot of the death corruption. And it even spread it to this rune bear, I guess, and, well, when you kill this rune bear, you get the cyst, so it was growing on him, I guess. Well, I guess they didn't want to make a different model, because some of the crabs, like around Lanedale here in the moats and shit like this, actually have the eyes, they have a Prince of Death theme to them. And, well, I guess there are only 2 rune bears down here. One is in a cave right here, and one is in this cave over here that is hidden in this Corpse Max waterfall, and I guess they didn't want to make an extra model for them. Or maybe this one has a extra model, but I never looked at it, but it didn't look like it from here. And, well, the basilisks are basically also part of the Prince of Death, because look at the eyes. These are the eyes of the Prince of Death. But the interesting part that I wanted to talk about is, well, the Prince of Death is the source of the death corruption, or the death blight, it's called. But for some reason, parts of the Prince of Death, like the cyst, are actually warding off the corruption, which is interesting. Can we see the... where is it? There. Can we actually... well, no. But it says greatly raises vitality, which is... explanation there. Which is... your resistance to death. The higher the number, the lower your susceptibility to instant death. Which is quite interesting. Parts of the corruption are actually helping against the corruption, which is probably something you can talk about. Actually, we have a look at the Prince of Death later, because now I want to have a look. Oh man, this one was so mean. There are these updrafts here to land on things like these, and this one in particular, and I'm not even... I'm hesitant even now, even though I think they've patched it, but this one in particular was like the killer. Like, usually you can jump back on top of them to receive no fall damage with Torrent, right? But this one, you could land on there perfectly fine and it would kill you. The hitbox wasn't at all made correctly. But actually, let's go through the area down there and let's talk about the level design of this place in particular. Because right now we have 2 entrances. One is the hidden entrance through this area, and one is the quote-unquote, what I call the official entrance, through the Siofra River, the upper part there, after killing Radahn. And then we have basically a linear area with a side path where you can get the through the cave part, the end cave part, where you can obtain the quite bad miracle or incantation of the what's it called actually? The Elden Star thingy, right? Yeah, Elden Star I think it's called. But this is just a side loop which leads you to the main path. It's fairly linear. It's not fairly linear, it's linear. And then we have here a big area to explore, which is basically littered by, or full of basilisks, these undead dudes, the half-finished valiant gargoyles, a rune bear, some ants up here. So it's quite diverse. And now I wonder, I actually wonder, let's for a moment, while I go through this area to not waste time, and by the way, here's the second rune bear, which I don't think these items are worth anything. But let's now, and before I'm talking about this, I wanted to, like, what's the word? I wanted to talk about these aberrations down here. These ghosts, or whatever you want to call them. Because they are around these walking mausoleums. They are also, if I'm remembering correctly, where can we find them? Around the mausoleums, of course, and then there's one guarding the Black Knife catacombs. So they're around death. But I'm not really sure if it has to do with the Prince of Death. So let me quickly have a look at their armor set. Because I want to know that now. Where is it? Mausoleum Knight. Armor worn by the Headless Knights who endlessly guard the Wandering Mausoleum. Okay. The wing-shaped ornaments on its back evoke the Death Bird, a self-inflicted curse that ties the spirits of these loyal knights to the land, having willingly beheaded themselves so that they may serve their masters in death. So they're basically of the Deathbird faction. Let's call it a faction, right? The Deathbird faction. And it's been a while since I've watched or listened to the video from Smowtown and all of their lore videos, so I'm quite rusty in the lore of them. So I don't really want to talk about them right now because I really know that little about them. But they're as I just read, they're part of the Deathbird faction, whatever the Deathbird faction even is. Something to do with death, I guess. But if they're here due to the Prince of Death, might be. Well, they definitely are tied to the Prince of Death due to their use of the Death Flame, right? The winged version with the spear are actually using, like, let's call it Deathblight magic. But it's really only the version with the spear. And here we have something interesting. Here we have a named Crucible Knight, which is a boss over here, the optional boss. Well, this whole area is optional. And in here, in this hollow tree, we can find the... I think it's the Crucible Tree armor set. Armor of the Crucible Knights who served Godfrey, the first Elven Lord, worn by the knight Zeluria and her men. Holds the power of the Crucible of Life. Crucible of Life, interesting. The primordial of the Earth Tree. Strengthens aspect of the Crucible incantations. This one as well, interesting. So there are basically two commanders of the Crucible Knight order, so to speak. So Godfrey was their master, basically, and then they had Ordovis. I guess the one leading the Crucible Knights with the X armor set. And then there are the Crucible Knights of Siluria here. And these are, well, I think this is Siluria. Is this one Siluria? I can't remember. I can't aggro her right now. But we actually can fight Ordorvis, so I think this is Siluria here. And she's guarding the set, and let's have a look at the spear now as well. To gain some lore from that. Siluria's tree. Give me lore. There. Weapon of one of the... What? Siluria's tree. Weapon of one of the two honored as foremost among the Crucible Knights. The primordial form of the Earth Tree is close in nature to life itself, and the spear modeled on its crucible is imbued with ancient holy essence. So I think this one is called the two honored as foremost among the Crucible Knights. I think there is Siluria and Ordovis, or the other one, the X General. Let's call him the X General. Actually, you can jump down here, which is nice that this one is working as intended. Well, no, actually, I'm wrong. There are actually sword versions of these dudes as well. But right. Now that we've basically seen almost everything, except the Prince of Death and his big-ass arena part, we can actually talk about the level design itself. And once I'm up there, I can actually concentrate on talking right now. Because it starts off linear, and then it opens up at this area, basically. It's just a big area that we can explore with two major points of interest. One is the tree thingy over there with the Crucible Knight boss, and the other one is the one I'm heading right now, which is the Prince of Death. I kind of feel like a tourist here. I'm just missing the camera. So let's get actually up there. This wasn't the official path. Oh well, it doesn't matter. And it dismounts us here, which I quite don't like. But if we actually have a look at the water here, because hello Prince of Death over there, and I wonder if I'm actually triggering the... I hope I'm not triggering the boss fight here, the minor boss fight, because I have no way of harming them. Maybe I'm not getting too close to that. If it happens, I just cut the video there and get rid of them first, but this is actually interesting here. Because I don't know if it's part of the lighting, but the water appears purple, right? It appears purpley, like literally purple. And it doesn't seem to be the reflection, because, well, it could have been the reflection because of the lighting engine they're using. That scared me. But I don't know why it's purple here. Or maybe it's just conveying the corruption, because this is the source of the corruption over there. The quite ugly corpse of, well, the Prince of Death, basically. And I'm kind of afraid of triggering the boss fight with Fia's champions there. Is Fia even there? Can't see her. She shouldn't be here. But actually we can yeah, I think that's close enough. Here we can see the Eyes of Death, just very large versions, and then the tendrils, which are, well, let's have a look at these tendrils from close. One of these, they're quite interesting because, well, they look like roots with wings of insects in them, like, or on top of them, but they're literally inside there. And this is probably part of the insects that are flying around there, like, and they're even bigger. These shard thingies, these are wings, at least they look like wings. And then we have a few different looking branches or roots, whatever. And these are the smaller ones down here with these fin-like structures on there. And this reminds me, well, there's the deep sea imagery here, right? Because somehow this one turned, the Prince of Death turned basically into a mermaid, which is an interesting concept. And well, of course, he wasn't that big to begin with, and here's the interesting or the kind of nonsensical part, right? So he was like, let's say he was as big as Godfrey. Godfrey is a big dude, but he's not that big. Let's say they're the same size, Godfrey and Godfrey was the first Eleanor, and this one is Godwyn, right? Godwyn the Golden. And of course he bloated. This is the bloated corpse, right? The bloated and deformed or transformed corpse of the Prince of Death. Not really dead. Dead in... the spirit is dead, but the body lives on. And with Rani, the exact opposite. The spirit lives on and the body is dead. But that's part of another topic, I guess. But here's the nonsensical part. They're not showing us the literal... what's it called? The part where the body over there turns into the fin-like structure, because for some reason his loincloth, or whatever you want to call this, is quite large. Why did this one increase in size as well? I don't know, maybe they're just obscuring things there. But it's interesting. Here he turned literally into a mermaid. This is the fin of a mermaid. Then we have the humanoidish body with a lot of roots sprouting out of him. And I think he got stabbed in the back, right? So, well, and the back is literally probably the origin of these tendrils, which look like tendrils of like what's it called, like jellyfish tendrils, and like deep sea tendrils, basically jellyfish and what's it called, the squids and shit. No, actually not like squid tendrils, but stuff you would expect to find in the ocean. Then his head got like, usually you would say this head is like upside down, because you have the nose there, the two eyes over there, and then the neck would be at this part, but the neck is actually at the other part. So the head got like twisted 180 degrees upside down, and then where his mouth or would be, we have this shellfishy, like, kind of looks like Voldemort a little bit, the Voldemort nose there, then a big two eyes, and then the oyster, is it oyster, I think? Is it oyster? Yeah, oyster, I think. With the hair coming out, like, dude, you need to wash your hair. You have literally soap water outside of your arena. Go and wash your hair. And then we have, say, still in the same posture, I think it's called, yeah, in the same posture, where he got held up by the Black Knife Assassins, because they, if you remember back in the cinematic, in the opening cinematic, they held them by Godwin's arms, and then they stabbed him in the back, and he's still in the same pose here. And then on his hands, of course, long fingernails, because why not? He has webbing in between his fingers. Yeah, he's basically turning into a mermaid, clam, oyster, fish boy. Unlucky, I guess. I guess it's useful because the lands between are surrounded by ocean, so very close to the deep ocean. But, well, unlucky, I guess. Unlucky that this one happened. Okay, but we are through the area, so let's have a look at the area from the bird's eye view here. And as I said, I think now the third time, it's a quite, what's the name? It's quite linear, right? The start linear, then 2 points of interest, this one over here, and then of course the Prince of Death, and I don't know why this is happening, like why Fear is here like 5 times, and D is twice here and whatnot. Then there's a walking mausoleum, which I guess it's also quite interesting. And then of course the Eternal City down here, the nameless Eternal City. And I wonder, maybe these are the roots of the Earth Tree. Right, I can't write on torrent here. But, well, the rating, I guess. This is basically more like a lore area where you can have like a deep dive into the lore of the game, rather than an area where you have peak gameplay, I would say. Because this area from a level design perspective is quite mediocre. It's not that interesting, right? You have your ants at the beginning, the beginning part where you actually get here is not quite, it's not eventful, it doesn't look as thrilling to go through, it looks quite disgusting, but not like a disgusting where you want to know more, it's more like a disgusting, why do I have to go through here, it looks ugly as hell. And the area doesn't look good to me, it doesn't look good, and this is bad. Because it doesn't look like... There are 2 types of looking bad and ugly. There's the one that looks ugly, good ugly, and there's the part where it looks bad ugly, and this is where it looks bad ugly. And by good ugly, I mean it is designed to be ugly, but it's hard to describe, like the good version of ugly, like the intentional good version. This looks like there's a lot missing, especially if you have a look at the cliff parts here. It all falls apart where there are like bland textures, like not very detailed textures, and it's just a mush basically of colors and stuff like this. And this area feels like it could have looked a bit more detailed, right? Like there are areas that, best example is for me now the this area over here, what's it called, El Fayel, which looks amazingly detailed and it looks good. I mean, it's not ugly, but even if it's designed to look as repulsing and ugly, it would still be a good ugly because it's detailed. And this one falls a little bit apart with the detail itself. I hope I expressed myself. Like, have a look at this waterfall texture, for example. This is just one example of the not quite right, because the waterfall doesn't look good. We have this main waterfall part where you can clearly see the seam, like it looks like a sheet of paper's been dragged down, and then you have these textures that just appear from nothingness, that are repeating itself over and over again. It just doesn't look good. And, well, the roots are repeating, especially if you look up and down, it suffers. The area suffers quite a lot. And the gameplay, you have a few ants, then the gameplay down here is like running away from Deathblight basilisks, basically, which is not fun to me. If you want to beat all of them, like, good luck. It's like hit and runs tactics is what you need there. And same thing going up here. I actually enjoy going up here. Like, it's quite the nice blend of dodging attacks, being quick. You can't really explore because all of these gargoyles are bombarding you. And if you stand still and try to orientate yourself, like, where do I go next? Do I go there? Then you're getting hit, and potentially you're getting killed because they either throw you off of torrent so that you fall down, or they outright kill you. I don't know. I can't remember the damage output, but you have to be careful. Certainly have to be careful here, and you have to be quick, which is actually quite nice to see, like, where you have to go around the enemy and then kill them one by one from behind, because once you're close to them, once you're behind them, they can't do jack shit to you. They can't even attack you. They only have one attack and, well, it's a beam in front of them, basically. Then we have the knights down there, which are, while they're not difficult to fight, they're definitely the strongest version of the knight, archetype, because they can teleport around, they have an extra effect, they might not deal the most damage out of all of the knights in these games, because these aren't the maximum scaled ones. I think the strongest version of these basic knights is in Elphael, where you have the Earth Tree avatar with the few ballistas, and there are the two knights, and also in this area down here, I think these are the strongest knights in the game. And with knights I mean the one with these type of armor sets, like these, and the Harlech Tree ones, these ones. I'm talking about these enemies. The knight version, basically. But, well, it's quite a lot of area, and there's not that much content, especially over here. It feels like, because you have the Wandering Mausoleum there's a lot of open area, which is quite boring, to be honest, going through. There's not much to pick up. Even the items there are not noteworthy, at least. Well, you have the armor set here, and maybe the spear, maybe not, I don't know. I can't tell you what's in these buildings here. I can't. Well, I know that the cyst is here with the rune bear, and then there's the Prince of Death staff on one of these towers, or somewhere here. Let's have a look at the staff while we are here, right? Maybe there's some hidden lore here that we can use later on, but to finish the level design, it's okay. Enemies are quite nothing special. I would still give it a, for the enemy placement, I would still give it a 7, because it's not bad. It's because we have to think 5 is like very neutral, like and then below 5 is like really bad. And if this place was just Basilisk, then it would be like underneath 5. But because it still has variety, there are the ends. There's this nice area up here, which is quite fun, at least for me. And then the knights down there and the soldiers. It's quite diverse. I would still give it a 7, 6 or 7 for the enemy placement. And then the level design itself is nothing special. Here it gets better because I really like the, as I said, the run up, the roots part of the level design. But other than that, this open area is not special. I would give it a 6. Because it's not bad. It's not like, I would say, a level design that I don't like which is badly executed, would be like something like the Great Hollow, just because it's just not working. The idea is good, but it's just too slippery and it's just not fun to go through, which is an area from Dark Souls 1, which is like something below 5 in my opinion. But this is okay, it works. And it's not that interesting, but it works. It's still a 6-ish. So let's give this place, the level design all in all, like a 6.5. And then the world design. The world design is quite, like, for a fantasy game, it's quite cohesive. You have these biggest branches. They did this a lot, like in previous games. They had basically the world on top of roots. This was like a ongoing theme in the From Software games, like Dark Souls 1 had the lake, or the Ash Lake, or whatever it's called, where you would basically see the world on top of trees. Dark Souls 2, did they something like this? I can't remember. Well, I think in Dark Souls 2 they did something in reverse, where they had the dragon area. It kind of feels like the same thing in reverse, but not really. But this one wasn't directed by Miyazaki, so maybe it's a Miyazaki kind of thing. Then Dark Souls 3 again, we had, I can't remember. Dark Souls 3, had they something like Ash Lake? I really can't remember. It's like it feels like ages since I played this game. And then in Bloodborne they had something like this in their dream, in their nightmare dreamish sections. Basically the pocket dimension of the great ones, or the old ones, whatever, the eldritch horrors thingies, where they had these different like tower-like structures in the background, especially in the Hunter's Nightmare, or the Hunter's Dream, whatever you want to call it. And then here again, the whole world is like either underneath big-ass caverns. Like, look at this cavern. Like, let's say this one is the corner, this one looks like the border, like the wall of this big-ass cavern. Look how much space this, like, how spacious this one is. And it's kinda odd that they are not utilizing this part here, that there isn't more. Maybe they've planned more and there isn't more, or maybe they just wanted this big ass. I mean, it feels kinda like there's missing something, right? Because yes, you have these routes like indicated on the map, but you can't just, you can only see a fraction due to the brown fog here. But back to the world design. World standing on trees or roots. And I guess these look more like roots, but it really throws me off that the roots have like, branches and leaves. So are these branches or are these roots? Back again to the same question. But oh well, maybe roots are sprouting branches and leaves once they are unearthed. Maybe this is the case. But, well, back to world design itself. Because the world design, the world is talking quite a lot, and actually, yeah, it makes sense that something like the Eternal City would have been here once and then just said peace and went underground. And then the big-ass lore dump. This whole area is a big-ass lore dump if you want to have a look at it and read all the item descriptions or the items that you're not particularly finding at this position, but that are influenced by this area. So actually now let's have a look at the Prince of Death's staff. Staff embedded with solid amber. Said to be a very part of the Prince of Death. Enhances death sorceries, one of the staffs deemed heretical by the Academy for its ability to allow sorceries to be augmented through faith in addition to intelligence. Red. Okay, what can we read from here? First of all, this is said to be a very part of the Prince of Death itself. Let's actually equip it and have a closer look at it, because the picture is not quite enough. Maybe we can find out what kind of part this is, and not really. Well, it says this is amber. Well, maybe it's part of the amber from the Prince of Death itself, like the roots and shit like that, but other than that, well, not much lore behind that stuff. But yeah, the sunken city, then the milky water, which is basically just corpse water. Still unknown where all the water is coming from. There must be some underneath, like, big ass lake even higher up than this one. Maybe it's coming just from the ocean somewhere. Or maybe not. It doesn't really matter where the water is coming from. But it's indicating that there are a lot of corpses here. But even if, like, you have to think, right? The water, let's say this is the origin of the water right up here, right? The origin, like, this is the highest point where the water is coming from. Then higher up are the corpses. The corpses are even higher up, because right here it's already milky, so it's not just milky down there, it's milky up here as well, so the corpses must have been even higher up. And maybe it's due to the Earth Tree burial, where the roots of the Earth Tree are literally sucking up the corpses of the people. Like, maybe it has to do something with that. Maybe it's due to the biggest corpse of the Prince of Death, but that is conveyed poorly, or that is like shown poorly, because, well, the water up there is actually purple, or maybe it's just the lighting. It's definitely not like white milky. And this water up here, the waterfall we can see right there, doesn't seem to originate from this part over here. There's a disconnect there, so must be someone else's corpse wax or whatever in the water, mixing in the water. But the level design, how do I rate it? Because the lore implications are quite deep. But the looks of this area, as I said, the looks are quite bad. Like, the quality of the design of this area is like, the actual visual quality is quite low. But I would still give it like something like a 7-ish, I guess. It's not bad. Maybe it's just a performance killer otherwise, if it would look better. But it's not as catchy. What is catchy is the corpse up there, but well. I guess that's my rating. 6.5 for the level design and something like a 7 for the world design. So I've talked enough, I think. I think that's it from me, and goodbye.